Chapter 13. From Criminal to Counselor, Becoming the Healer You Needed. I used to break things because I was broken. Now I help people rebuild. Coming out of the last chapter of my life, the one where the world tried to reduce me to a record, I realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. My story wasn't over. For years, I thought the best I could do was stay invisible, keep my head down, stay out of trouble, work jobs that didn't ask too many questions. I told myself that was enough, because who was I to dream bigger? I had already disqualified myself, hadn't I? I had already been stamped, filed, labeled. People with records didn't become mentors. They didn't become leaders. They didn't become healers. They just survived quietly. But survival has an expiration date. At some point, the very thing that once kept you alive starts to feel like it's killing you. And that's what happened to me. I got tired of just breathing in and out. I got tired of only existing to prove I wasn't messing up again. I wanted more. I needed more. That's when the idea first crept in. What if my scars weren't just baggage? What if they were blueprints? What if everything I thought had ruined me was actually training me to guide someone else through their own storm? I didn't believe it right away. Honestly, I laughed it off. A counselor, me, the same me who once couldn't stay sober for a week, the same me who left a trail of broken relationships, broken promises, and broken glass. Who would trust me? Who would listen to me? But then something shifted. It didn't happen in a classroom or a church pew. It happened in a group therapy session where everyone looked just as tired as I felt. One guy, shaking with shame, admitted he relapsed again. His voice cracked when he said, "I don't think I can do this anymore." Something inside me broke open. Without thinking, I said, "I've been there." The room went quiet. I wasn't giving advice. I wasn't quoting a book. I wasn't putting on a performance. I was just telling the truth. And for a moment, you could see the weight lift from his shoulders. His breathing steadied. He nodded, like he had just been given permission to not hate himself. After the session, he pulled me aside and said, "Man, the way you said that helped me breathe." That moment haunted me in the best way. It was small. It wasn't headline-worthy, but it was real. And in recovery, real is everything. Here's what I've learned. Your calling rarely arrives with trumpets. It comes as a whisper, a quiet nudge that says, "Pay attention. This matters." For me, that whisper said, maybe you were never meant to stay silent about your pain. Maybe your pain is supposed to speak. At first, I resisted it. Who was I to help anybody? My own life was still messy. I still had days when shame suffocated me. I still had nights where loneliness made me want to disappear. How could I sit with someone else's wounds when mine were still bleeding? But that's the thing about healing. It doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. People don't need someone who has it all figured out. They need someone who gets it. Someone who doesn't flinch when they confess the worst parts of themselves. Someone who won't run when the story gets ugly. And ugly, I could handle ugly. I'd lived it. That realization terrified me and freed me at the same time. Because suddenly, all the things I thought disqualified me started looking like qualifications. My relapses made me fluent in despair. My prison time made me fluent in isolation. My trauma made me fluent in silence. My survival made me fluent in resilience. I wasn't less of a healer because of my past. I was more. Because, unlike a textbook, I didn't just read about pain. I lived it. There's one moment I'll never forget. We had just finished a group session. I was lingering in the hallway when a guy I knew from meetings walked up to me. Out of nowhere, he said, "You know, you'd make a great counselor." I laughed, like actually laughed out loud. "Me? Bro, I've got a record. I've got trauma. I've got days I barely hold it together." He didn't laugh back. He just looked me in the eyes and said, "Exactly. That's why you'd be good." I swear I felt the ground shift beneath me. For so long, I had believed my story was a liability, that the only thing it proved was that I was broken beyond repair. But in that moment, I realized something I had never dared to believe. Maybe my story wasn't a liability. Maybe it was my license. Of course, it wasn't that simple. The minute I started imagining myself as a counselor, the shame stormed in. Voices in my head said things like, "You're a fraud. You're still broken. You're just pretending. No one will take you seriously." And honestly, sometimes I believed them. I'd walk into rooms where people had degrees on the wall, and I'd shrink. I'd hear professionals use clinical terms I didn't know, and I'd feel small. I'd remember the faces of people I hurt, and I'd wonder if helping others was just hypocrisy in disguise. But every time I wanted to give up, I'd go back to that moment in the group circle, the one where my simple honesty helped someone breathe, and I'd think, if my truth gave one person hope, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's enough. Because here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. Healing doesn't ask you to be perfect. Healing asks you to be honest. And when I leaned into honesty, I noticed something powerful. People didn't care that I wasn't polished. They cared that I was real. They didn't need me to sound like a therapist. They needed me to sound like someone who understood. As I kept showing up, something strange began to happen. I started to become the person I had always needed, the one who doesn't look away when you're crying, the one who doesn't flinch when you confess your relapse, the one who doesn't preach at you but sits with you, the one who doesn't fix you but reminds you that you're not broken beyond repair. I never had that growing up. I had people who told me to man up, to stop crying, to hide my pain. I had people who judged me before they ever understood me. I had systems that punished me without ever asking what put me there in the first place. But now, I was determined to be different, to be the safe space I never had, to be the kind of counselor who doesn't sit above people, but beside them, not as an expert, not as a savior, just as someone who gets it. And that's where the second story of my life began. From criminal to counselor, from breaker to builder, from the one who caused pain to the one who helps others heal from theirs. But let me be clear, this transformation didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a neat, Instagram-worthy arc. It was messy. It was clumsy. It was full of doubt, setbacks, and nights where I wondered if I was kidding myself. Still, every time I wanted to walk away, I kept remembering that one whisper, "Maybe your pain is supposed to speak." And the more I listened, the louder it grew, until finally I couldn't ignore it anymore. That was the beginning of the shift, but it was only the beginning. Because stepping into the role of healer meant confronting something even scarier than my past. It meant confronting myself. Becoming a healer wasn't just about helping others. It was about facing the parts of myself I had buried the deepest. Because here's the truth. You can't walk someone else into their healing if you're still running from your own. And I was a runner. For years, I sprinted away from everything that hurt. Old memories, the guilt of what I'd done, the emptiness of who I thought I'd become. Now, stepping into this new chapter, I couldn't outrun anymore. I had to sit with it. And sitting with yourself? That's harder than any prison cell I've ever been in. I remember the first time I really tried to practice what I was beginning to teach. I had just finished a group where I told everyone, your past doesn't disqualify you, it prepares you. They nodded, some even smiled. I felt good walking out, like I was really stepping into this new role. But when I got home, I walked into the bathroom, flipped on the light, and caught my reflection in the mirror. And just like that, the old voices flooded back. You're a hypocrite. You're still broken. You'll never outrun your record. It was brutal. Like everything I had just said to others didn't apply to me. Like I was an imposter, selling hope that I didn't fully believe in myself. I gripped the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. But then I remembered something I had told the group just an hour earlier. Talk to yourself the way you wish someone had talked to you. So I tried. I looked into the mirror, into my own tired eyes, and whispered, I forgive you. You're not a fraud. You're learning. It didn't feel natural. My throat tightened. My stomach twisted. But I stayed. And that night, for the first time, I realized that counseling wasn't about having it all figured out. It was about being willing to walk the same path you're guiding others through. I wish I could say it got easier right away. It didn't. There were days I wanted to quit. Days I thought, maybe I should just go back to staying quiet. Maybe I'm not built for this. One night, after leading a relapse prevention group, I came home, sat on the couch, and cried into my hands. Not a dignified cry, an ugly, gasping for air cry. Because while I was telling others to believe in themselves, I wasn't sure I believed in me. That's when a text came in. It was from a young man in the group. Thank you for today. I didn't pick up tonight because of what you said. You don't know how much that means. I stared at the screen, tears still running down my face, and realized it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up. That text saved me, and it reminded me of something I'd later repeat to every client I worked with. Sometimes your survival is someone else's hope. Slowly, things began to shift. I stopped trying to prove myself in every room. I stopped comparing myself to professionals with letters after their names. I stopped waiting for the world's permission. Instead, I focused on the one thing I knew I could do: be real. When someone said, I relapsed again, I didn't respond with the lecture. I said, I know what that feels like. When someone whispered, I don't think I can do this, I said, I thought that too. But you're still here. That matters. When someone cried, I didn't rush them. I sat in the silence, letting them know their tears weren't too heavy for me. Trust doesn't get built through polished speeches. It gets built in those raw, unfiltered moments when someone realizes you're not judging me, you're with me. And every time I showed up like that, the shame I carried grew a little lighter. It finally clicked for me one evening when I stayed late after a session. A young guy who had been quiet for weeks finally opened up. His story sounded painfully familiar: trauma, abandonment, running from pain with substances. At the end, he looked at me and asked quietly, "Do you think I can really change? Or am I too far gone?" I took a deep breath because that was the exact question I used to ask myself. And I told him the truth. "You're not too far gone. You're just tired. And tired people don't need shame. They need rest. They need someone to believe for them until they can believe for themselves." His eyes filled with tears. He nodded, and for the first time I saw hope flicker where there had only been despair. Driving home that night, it hit me. I've become the healer I was praying for all those years ago. I've become the person I needed when I was lost. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Becoming a healer doesn't mean you stop hurting. It means you learn how to carry your hurt differently. It means you stop hiding it, and instead you use it as medicine. And the more I leaned into that truth, the more I realized that the real challenge wasn't helping others. The real challenge was allowing myself to believe I was worthy of being this person at all. Because every time I helped someone else heal, it forced me to confront how much healing I still needed. Helping others cracked me open in ways I didn't expect. At first, I thought I was stepping into this role for them, for the people sitting in the chairs, the ones who still smelled of the streets, the ones fighting cravings so strong you could feel it pulsing in the room. But the deeper I went, the more I realized I was doing this for me too. Because every time I guided someone through their storm, I had to face my own reflection in it. You can't sit in front of another human being, look them in the eye, and say, "You're more than your past," without hearing that same sentence echo back into your own chest. There's a certain weight to leading groups. You walk in carrying not only your story, but theirs. You feel the heaviness before anyone even speaks. It's in the way people slump in their chairs, the way silence hangs when you ask a question, the way eyes dart down because no one wants to be the first to admit the truth. At first, that weight crushed me. I'd leave sessions exhausted, like I was carrying everyone's pain on my back. But over time, I learned something sacred. I'm not supposed to carry it. I'm supposed to hold space for it. That's the difference. Carrying breaks you. Holding heals you. And the more I held, the more people trusted me with their deepest wounds. But here's the thing about working in recovery, you can't fake it. People in pain have radar for dishonesty. They can spot a fraud from a mile away. They know when you're quoting a book instead of speaking from the gut. One man told me once, "I don't care how many letters you got after your name. I care if you know what it feels like to want to die but still wake up the next day." That hit me hard because he was right. People don't want polished. They want proof. And proof isn't a diploma. Proof is a scar. Proof is a story told without shame. Proof is presence that doesn't flinch. I realized then that my past, the thing I thought disqualified me, was the very thing that made me qualified. For months, I danced around my story. I'd share bits and pieces enough to connect, but never the whole truth. I was still afraid of judgment, still afraid that if I said it all, I'd lose the credibility I was just beginning to build. But one night, I broke. I told the group everything, the record, the charges, the darkest nights, the times I thought I wouldn't make it. I laid it all out, raw and unfiltered. When I finished, there was silence. I braced myself for rejection. Then one man, tattoos up his neck, tears welling in his eyes, said, That's the first time I've believed someone in this room actually gets it. That was the night everything changed, because I realized your truth doesn't push people away. It pulls the right people closer. Little by little, I stopped hiding, and as I did, I became something I never thought I could be, a bridge between the criminal and the counselor, a bridge between the addict and the healed, a bridge between shame and hope. That's what we all are, really, when we survive something dark. We're not finished products. We're living bridges. We stand in the messy middle, showing people there's a way across. And let me tell you, being that bridge is holy work. It's not about being strong all the time. It's about being willing to stand in the gap, shaky knees and all, and say, "Follow me. I don't have it all figured out, but I've made it this far, and you can too." I never thought those words would apply to me, counselor. It still feels strange sometimes, like I'm wearing a jacket that doesn't quite fit. But every time someone says, "Thank you for listening," or "I've never said that out loud before," the jacket feels a little more like mine. I don't pretend anymore. I don't perform. I don't try to sound smarter than I am. I just show up. And that has been enough. I used to break things because I was broken. Now I build things because I'm healing. That's the shift. That's the testimony. If you've ever thought your past disqualified you from helping others, hear me. It doesn't. Your record, your mistakes, your scars, those are the very things that make you trustworthy. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with real. And if you're still breathing, it means your story isn't finished. It means there are people waiting to hear the one sentence only you can say that will keep them alive for one more night. That's the responsibility. That's the gift. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not done. I'm still healing, still stumbling, still learning. But I know this. I've stepped into a role I never thought I could. From criminal to counselor, from destroyer to builder, from hurting people to healing people. And the craziest part, I'm just getting started. Because now, every time I look at someone sitting in front of me, I don't just see their pain, I see their potential. And every time I help someone believe in themselves again, I feel another piece of myself come back to life. This isn't the end of my story. It's the beginning of a new one. And the question that keeps me awake at night, the one that humbles me and excites me all at once, is this. If my pain has already turned into purpose, what else could my future become?